Hello everyone and welcome to another Pax Day video. My name is Brian if you happen to be new to this channel, but if you're a returning subscriber, thanks for being a part of the 299 of you guys who've hit that subscribe button and taken a chance on my Pax Day content. That's what you're going to get here. Pax Day news, guides, and so much more. And that's actually what we get a breakdown for you today. There's new details, some information that has come out of a recent interview with Narc and the lead developer behind the game. And I think there's some things to unpack. I want to share those with you. If you guys haven't seen the full interview, you can go watch it. It's a really good interview. But I'm going to share you guys what kind of my takeaways, my thoughts about that. But before we get into that, I think I really want to make sure that you guys have signed up for the alpha. I saw a couple people comment that they missed it. They weren't aware that there were signups going on. You can still go sign up for the alpha. Now, the devs have said that they're not ready to fully commit to the next, they're not going to announce the date yet, but if you guys saw one of my previous videos, I kind of give you a time frame as to when we can start to expect new tests to roll out. But they did give us some beautiful screenshots that if you guys haven't seen over on the Discord are absolutely gorgeous, and I'm showing them here for you in the video itself, and hopefully you enjoyed that. But what I want to do now is point you to the main site. You can see, you can register, you can link your Steam, you can link your Discord. Discord's going to increase the likelihood of you getting picked. It doesn't guarantee it, but if you guys want, you can also use a friend token. In this case, mine is Ginger Prime. No pressure to do so, but if you guys want to increase your odds and hopefully get in with me, that is one thing you can do. Go check out your account main page. I'll include a link in the description of this video for you, so that way you can take it and run with it. But let's break down what was released, what's the new information regarding the Narc interview. Now, if you guys don't follow the Narc, he is an Ashes of Creation content creator. Basically, he's an MMO content creator, and he's been following Ashes of Creation for a very long time, and he had some really good questions. Obviously, they were not ready to answer the monetization question, and that's going to be something that we'll learn more with time. So we're all gonna have to be in this kind of ship of, well, we don't really know what their plans are here, but I'm personally excited to see how it goes from it. But he started off and opened up, from my perspective, with world bosses. Obviously, the reason they said that loot is not going to scale with the number of players as a way of combating that everything's going to be a Zerg fest. So you don't want to go and just say, everybody on the server, we're going to go beat this boss and everybody's going to get a prize for it. Not everybody's going to get paid, as basically how that's going to function and work. But they do want to have these large scale battles, and they want to see that, but they're also going to be changing things based off of player feedback. And that was kind of a running theme in the entire interview. Like, this is what we're thinking, this is the direction we're going, but we're also going to be listening to what the players are saying. And that's going to be, for me, the most interesting thing. How much of a sandbox MMO are they, like, how far are they willing to go? Because you always kind of run the risk of making something so convenient that it ends up kind of lowering its value. If you never heard the phrase, gamers will optimize the fun out of anything, well, now you have, and that's something very true, especially to us MMO players out there. Regarding groups and open world content, the dungeons and various different pieces of content, like if you haven't seen, going into a dungeon, there is a loading screen, but they were asked if there was time gating that was going to go on behind them. He said, no, there's not going to be time gating in terms of when you can or can't enter the dungeon, but they're going to put in random and long spawns. And I'm just wondering if they'll also have trigger spawns. If you don't know what that is certain things happen in the world, which then triggers this, boss to spawn, and then you can be in the dungeon and kill it for some really rare loot. And that's going to be something interesting to see how that plays out in the long run. Now, they did acknowledge that the gear and the skills and everything like that, like, they're still working on that from especially a material basis. I know there's a big conversation about, are they going to be introducing new materials, and especially some fantasy materials like mithril and things like that. And I think that's something that we can easily expect. This is where I really want to sit down and give you guys the details, because from a PvP perspective, there's plenty of players out there that forced PvP means that they're just not going to play it. And they represent the vast majority of gamers out there within the MMO RPG space. However, this is where it gets interesting, is that there's going to be this faction-based system, and it sounds like it's very player-driven, so that if you don't want to PvP, you're going to be perfectly safe. And I think he really kind of put this home. But this is the system, and this is going to be the interesting thing about it, because like if you do want a PvP, like every game that I've seen has really struggled with trying to get that mass market appeal and at the same time offer something that really adds a lot of value to the players and their stories. Because if you can't hurt me and I can't hurt you, and you steal something from me, like, you know, like if I drop something and you take it, there ends up being, you know, there's no ability to seek justice, you know, and player driven stories and narratives like that are, I think, you know, kind of 1 in a million when it comes to the MMO space, personally speaking. But I'm very curious as to where you fall, because I think PvP is a needed thing, but I do know that it does chase people away or keep people away. And if it is set up to where player driven factions are really what are driving the PvP, and if you don't want a PvP, you just join a faction that isn't a PvP faction, that's going to be interesting to see. At least that's what I gathered from what they said, and I listened to it a handful of times to try to make sure I fully understood it. Now, they also talk about how multiple groups can go into the same dungeon, but again, this kind of ties back into that loot isn't going to scale up with the number of players. I'm going to be curious to see how that happens, if there's some kind of rolling system. Obviously, the features and things like that were not in the current alpha. But yeah, rare spawns and dungeons, basically like old school MMORPGs, where you have these bosses that might spawn, might not, or you don't know when they will. So you can see kind of various different camps form, and that can be fun. I think for a lot of us old school MMO players, like we kind of, you know, fantasize or we romanticize that time back in the day, and it does lead to, you know, downtime. It does lead to other, you know, exploring other systems or social conversation and more while you wait for the thing to happen so you can do the thing to get the thing to go do the other thing. I mean, that's RPGs for you. Obviously, mounts will be in the game. I think that was like an important thing. I think that's going to be exciting to see, especially after watching the Light No Fire trailer, like having how they traverse the land and more makes me really excited. I can't wait to see both of these games. There's such an interesting appeal to me in both of them. They also talked about how bags were a missing feature. If you guys remember, the inventory was limited. Also, same with the crates. And they're even talking about having bags that are specialized, like maybe this bag can end up holding way more herbs, but it can't hold anything else. So they're looking into that, but that was not a feature that was in the alpha, but that is definitely a feature that is on the way. They also have a long-term vision for PvP as its relationship with the home valleys, the wildlands, and the dungeons. Players who are sworn into the system, you can like I said, pledge to a faction, and this is something I think really cool. And then players might fight to build or occupy territories. Really, at the end of the day, they don't want content to be gated behind PvP, aka Destiny 2. You guys know what I'm talking about. There were certain quests that forced you to go into PvP matches, or even forced you to go into PvE matches. They had this, you know, centered, you know, like you, okay. And if you were somebody who likes doing all of it, then you were fine. But if you're a player like who is mainly a PvE player or a mainly PvP player, then it never really kind of worked itself out. They then talk about skills and crafting and how, like, obviously your skills are tied into the gear. I'm personally waiting to see for more information on this. And then finally, regarding crafting, it does sound like there's going to be an RNG based system, but it does sound like there's going to be some player agency in order to get the roles that you're after. However, they also talk about a kind of a book and recipe system, and basically being able to make materials to create your own books and do your own research within the crafting system itself. So it sounds like they're really thinking through a lot of those systems. Now, finally, Narc brought up the issue about when you fail, because there was this thing he was working on in one of his videos, and it failed and he lost the materials. And he says that when you fail, you won't lose everything, but that's going to depend on your skill. So if you have a high skill ceiling within that for a specific craft, it will reduce the odds both of failure, but if you do fail, the loss of materials, and that will be coming at some point in the future. And like I said at the beginning, no real hints at what kind of monetization we can expect, but either way, like I'm freaking excited, and I hope you guys are too. Anyway, guys, if you feel like the video earns it, like, sub, and share. Sound off in the comments below. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video. But until then, take care.